When I was younger, I used to play the game of good versus evil. I challenged the demon many times. They were powerful. She was powerful. I was not ready then, but I'm ready now. Let's talk about the Conjuring 3. The Devil Made Me Do It. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is the latest Conjuring film in the whole franchise, starring Ed and Lorraine Warren, played wonderfully by Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. You know what? They seem to get better with age, just like fine wine. Now, this time they return after a series of spin-off, Annabelle Creation, The Nun, Clownado. No, the latest Conjuring is not only a haunted house trope. They no longer do a haunted house anymore. This time it's a murder mystery.
Are you serious?
This film is loosely based on the real-life case of Arnie Johnson. Back in 1981, this guy actually murdered his landlord. He was accused of murder, but then in his defense, he said that the devil made him do it. What?
Why the toilet had flush?
The toilet was not flushed?
Yeah.
Shit is flowing everywhere?
What's that?
Not me. The devil made me do it. The film opens with a bad exorcism of a young boy named David Glessel by a priest and the Warrens. Now, during this exorcism, lots of things happened. Wind was blowing, the house was shaking, people were shouting, the boy contorts himself enjoying Cirque du Soleil.
Ta-da!
Now, it is here that Ed Warren suffers a life-threatening heart attack. And in the midst of all the chaos,
leave him alone, okay? Leave him alone and take me.
Damn, that is a stupid thing to do. Okay, so what follows after that is a series of flashbacks. We see how they all started from the time that they actually went into the house. They bought the house most probably for cheap. This also showcased why water beds are the worst beds ever. We also spent time to set up the love between Arnie Johnson and Debbie. It also mirrors the same thing as Ed and Lorraine Warren, of how they first met when Ed was working at the cinema, and then they went out on a date, and then they kissed in a gazebo. But things take for the worse. Soon, Arnie is arrested for murder with blood on his hands. And as the Warrens are called in to investigate, they found that an ancient satanic curse was plagued upon them, and that was the reason for his possession. Now, this is where I'm scratching my head. The film takes a detour to two paths, actually. They took reality first, and then they threw it aside, and then they add some dramatic twists. They added another story of a murder mystery involving two missing girls and a satanic cult into the film. Now, this added story, not too bad, but for the character of Lorraine Warren, she needs some police case files to help her with Arnie Johnson's possession. And the police need Lorraine Warren's psychic ability to find a missing body. Then the film continues with the investigation, and it leads to another character, a retired priest, who was previously investigating this satanic cult. And it also reveals that he likes collecting haunted objects in his basement.
But I felt it was safer to keep them locked. I like taking guns off the streets.
What else can go wrong? Well, why not we just add, spoiler alert, that he fathered a child. She is the witch that's responsible for everything in the film, the possession, the curse, and then the plot shifts to the battle between Lorraine and the witch, both pitting each other with their psychic abilities, both seeing each other in their psychic mind. Okay. Now, having said that, there was a very interesting scene at a morgue whereby bodies were coming out and coming alive and trying to attack the Warrens. that was pretty interesting. I actually like the thing. I really, really, really love it. It was very exciting. And then it propels itself to the movie's climax, and we see intercutting shots between Ed, Lorraine, and the witch fighting each other versus the act of possessing Arnie in prison. So Arnie is getting possessed. Lorraine needs to stop the witch, so it's cutting across between good and versus evil. Okay, that's not too bad. It kind of anchors the film, but that's what it has to offer. So, is this film any good? Well, it depends on your point of view. You know, the film actually does create some tension, some jump scares, not as much as the other two films, but the slow build-up of the characters and the middle narrative plot of the murder mystery kind of weigh the whole film down. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still quite a compelling film. At parts of the story, it's not too bad, but it does take a huge artistic license because the police investigation, the missing girl, the priest, the satanic cult, those parts were made up and it's not part of a true story just for this film. Now, I do understand because there's not much of the court case that was happening. There's only so much you can say about the court case. So they have to dramatize quite a lot of it. Then in that part, you know, the loosely based on true story, you got to really separate fact and fiction. The first two Conjuring films were haunted house tropes. You know, basically a house is haunted and you go and solve the problem. There were a lot of actual events that was hanging around the house. So you have a lot of material to play with. But this film, it's more of a mix between real life and fiction, or more fiction than real life. Because the court case, they didn't dwell into it too much, and we already know what happened. He was already convicted for murder. So they have to make things up in the middle to entertain us. I just wish that the film made up its mind of what it really wants to do. If they really want to make the court case, then go all else and investigate the court case with the possession angle. If they want to do just a missing girl murder mystery, then by all means use psychic powers to find the bodies. But then when you mix these two things together, kind of not gel for me. You know, it seems like it's just two stories super glued together, and then the paint is still wet and sliding away. But still, I am a big Conjuring universe fan. Ask my family, ask anyone. I've watched their films religiously. But for what it's worth, it is still a good film. Not as great as I wanted it to be. Don't get me wrong, it is still an entertaining film. It is wonderfully shot. It's well acted. But I think it's the weakest among the three films. So, I am giving The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, a B-. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the notification button for more content. Come back anytime. The room is always open. Now, I'm off to conquer and fight evil with my trusty weapon. Nice picture. I'm coming.